I thought my husband was taking our children on a surprise family vacation. I had no idea he was taking them to a resort with my sister while abandoning me in a crumbling village 4 hours from civilization with no phone signal, no transportation, and a locked suitcase full of divorce papers. The realization didn't hit me all at once. It came in waves, each one more devastating than the last. First, the confusion when the car drove away with my kids' faces pressed against the back window. Then the slow, creeping horror as I tried the door of the cottage he'd rented and found it wouldn't open. Then the discovery of the note taped to the window, written in his precise handwriting, explaining that he and my sister had been planning this for months, that they were in love, that they were giving me time to process the divorce papers he'd so thoughtfully left in the suitcase by the door. Time and solitude to accept that my marriage was over and my sister had stolen my life. Standing there in the dusty road of that abandoned village, holding a suitcase I couldn't open because he'd taken the only key, I understood something fundamental about betrayal. It's not one moment. It's 1,000 small cruelties stacked on top of each other until the weight becomes unbearable. 3 months earlier, everything had seemed normal, or what I'd convinced myself was normal. I was standing in our kitchen in Portland, the morning light streaming through the windows I'd insisted on when we bought the house 6 years ago. Those windows had cost an extra $12,000, but I'd wanted natural light for the kids' breakfast, wanted to see them bathed in sunshine as they ate their cereal, and argued about whose turn it was to choose the music for the drive to school. David had agreed eventually, the way he agreed to most things back then, or the way I thought he agreed. Looking back now, I wonder if he was already pulling away, already planning his exit, already looking at my sister with something more than brotherly affection. Emma was 8 and Noah was 5. They were eating waffles that morning, the frozen kind because I'd been too tired to make them from scratch. Emma had syrup in her hair somehow, and Noah was building a tower out of his waffle pieces instead of eating them. Normal chaos, normal mess, normal family life. David came downstairs already dressed for work, his tie perfectly knotted, his briefcase in hand. He kissed the top of my head without really looking at me, grabbed his coffee from the machine and headed for the door. "Working late tonight," he said. "Big presentation tomorrow. Don't wait up." I nodded, already mentally rearranging the evening schedule. Dinner for 3 instead of 4, bedtime routine without backup, the familiar solo parenting dance I'd been doing more and more frequently over the past year. I should have questioned it, should have asked why his presentations always seemed to happen on the same nights my sister Jessica volunteered to come over and help with the kids. Should have wondered why he always came home smelling like her perfume, that distinctive jasmine scent she'd worn since college. But I was tired, so tired. Working part-time as a graphic designer from home while managing 2 kids and a house and a husband who was increasingly absent. I didn't have the energy to question the small discrepancies, the minor inconsistencies in his stories. Jessica had been coming around a lot that year. My younger sister, 32 to my 36, still unmarried, still living in her downtown apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its designer furniture. She'd always been the pretty one, the fun one, the one who drew attention when we walked into rooms together. I'd made peace with that years ago, or thought I had. Gotten used to being the responsible older sister, the one who got married first, had kids first, bought a house in the suburbs while Jessica dated musicians and traveled to Bali and lived the life I sometimes dreamed about in my darker moments. She'd seemed genuinely happy for me when I married David, had been my maid of honor, had given a touching speech about finding your person, had helped me into my dress and fixed my veil, and told me I'd never looked more beautiful. I believed her. I believed everything she said because she was my sister, my ally, my friend. The idea that she might want what I had, might be willing to take it, never crossed my mind. She came over that night, the night David claimed he was working late, showed up around 6 with Thai food and a bottle of wine, that bright smile on her face. "I thought you could use some backup," she said, setting the bags on the counter, and I know Emma's been begging me to show her that new TikTok dance. I was grateful. Pathetically, desperately grateful for the help, for the company, for someone to share the evening with while my husband worked late again. We ate dinner together, all 4 of us, and Jessica made the kids laugh with her impressions and her stories. She was good with them, natural in a way I sometimes envied. Emma adored her, called her the cool aunt, begged for sleepovers at her apartment. After the kids went to bed, Jessica and I sat on the couch with our wine, talking about nothing important. Her latest dating disaster, my frustration with a difficult client, the new coffee shop that opened on Alberta Street. Normal sister conversation, except she kept checking her phone. Little glances when she thought I wasn't looking, her fingers moving quickly across the screen, a small smile playing at her lips. I asked her about it finally, teasing. New boyfriend? She looked up, and for just a second I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or triumph. But it passed so quickly I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Something like that, she said vaguely, still figuring it out. I want to be sure before I tell you about it. I respected that. Told her I understood, that she should take her time, that the right person was worth waiting for. Had no idea she was texting my husband. Had no idea they were coordinating their stories, making sure their alibis matched, planning their next meeting while sitting 3 feet away from me on my own couch. The betrayal wasn't just what they did. It was how they did it. The elaborate deception, the months of lies stacked on lies, the way they used my trust, my exhaustion, my love for both of them as cover for their affair. David came home around 11 that night, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. "How was the presentation?" I asked from the couch where I was half watching some Netflix show. He didn't even hesitate. "Went great," he said. "I think we really nailed it." The client seemed impressed, every word a lie delivered with perfect confidence. The plan for the vacation came up 6 weeks before it happened. David announced it over breakfast on a Saturday, that same kitchen where everything always seemed to happen. "I've been thinking," he said, setting down his coffee with that deliberate casualness that should have been a warning. "We should take a family trip. Get out of the city for a bit. The kids would love it." I looked up from the grocery list I was making, surprised. David wasn't usually the one who initiated family activities. That was my domain, the planning and organizing and making sure we created memories for the kids. "A vacation sounds great," I said. "Where were you thinking?" He had it all planned out. A place in eastern Oregon near the Wallowa Mountains. He'd found this great deal on a cabin rental, very rustic and authentic, a chance for the kids to experience real nature instead of just city parks. We could leave next month, take a full week. He'd already cleared it with his work. It sounded perfect. Exactly the kind of reset our family needed. I didn't question why he'd planned it without me. Didn't wonder how he'd found this specific cabin or why he was so insistent on this particular location and these particular dates. I was just happy he was engaged, present, planning something for us. What a fool I was. Over the next weeks, he talked about the trip constantly, showed me pictures of the area, beautiful mountain vistas and clear streams, told the kids stories about the wildlife they might see, the adventures they'd have. Emma and Noah were beside themselves with excitement. They counted down the days on the calendar, packed and repacked their little backpacks with treasures they wanted to bring. Jessica came over the week before we left, ostensibly to help me shop for the trip, to make sure I had everything I needed. We went to REI together, bought new hiking boots for the kids, a better first aid kit, sunscreen and bug spray, and all the supplies for a week in the wilderness. "I'm gonna miss you guys," she said as we loaded the bags into my car. "A whole week without seeing my favorite niece and nephew. Maybe I should come visit you there, make it a real family adventure." I laughed. Told her the cabin was probably too small, that we'd take lots of pictures and she could have the kids for a sleepover when we got back. She hugged me in the parking lot, and I remember thinking how lucky I was to have a sister who loved my children so much, who wanted to be involved in their lives, who made time for us despite her busy schedule and exciting life. I didn't notice that the hug lasted a little too long. Didn't see the way she was looking at my car, memorizing it maybe, or the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The morning we left was chaos. 2 kids, a week's worth of supplies, the inevitable forgotten items discovered at the last minute. David loaded the car with methodical efficiency while I ran through my mental checklist one more time. Medications, check. Chargers, check. Emma's stuffed rabbit she couldn't sleep without, check. We pulled out of the driveway at 7 in the morning, the kids already watching something on the iPad in the back seat, David's playlist running through the speakers. It felt like the beginning of something good, like maybe this trip would fix whatever had been broken between us over the past year, like we could be a family again in some meaningful way. The drive took hours. We left the highway eventually, took smaller and smaller roads through increasingly empty landscape. The towns got farther apart. The cell signal got weaker. The pavement gave way to gravel. "This is really remote," I said to David, watching the landscape roll past. "Are you sure this is the right way?" He checked his phone, which somehow still had service even though mine had died an hour ago. "GPS says we're almost there," he said. "Just another 30 minutes. The kids were getting restless in the back, asking when we'd arrive, if there would be other kids to play with, if they could go swimming. Soon, I kept telling them. Soon. We passed through a village that looked abandoned. Old wooden buildings with broken windows, a church with a collapsed roof, houses that hadn't been lived in for decades. There was something eerie about it, something that made my skin prickle with unease. "David," I said, "I don't like this. Maybe we should turn around, find somewhere else." "We're already here," he said, and pulled the car to a stop in front of one of the less decrepit buildings. "This is it. This is the cabin." I stared at the structure in front of us. It wasn't a cozy mountain retreat. It wasn't even really a cabin. It was barely standing, with a sagging porch and windows so dirty you couldn't see through them. "There's been a mistake," I said. "This can't be right. Call the rental company." "No signal out here," David said calmly, "but I'm sure it's better inside. Let me check it out first." He got out of the car, leaving the engine running, the kids still strapped in their seats. I watched him walk to the building, try the door, peer through windows. He spent several minutes there, and I noticed he was texting someone, his phone apparently working fine despite his claims about signal. Finally, he came back to the car, opened my door instead of his. "Sarah," he said, and his voice had changed, had gone cold in a way I'd never heard before. "We need to talk." The kids were right there. I didn't want to do this in front of the kids, but he didn't seem to care. He reached past me, grabbed the suitcase from the back seat, the one I'd packed for myself, set it on the ground next to the car. "What are you doing?" I asked, confusion turning to fear. "David, what's happening?" "I'm sorry," he said, but he didn't sound sorry. He sounded relieved, like he'd been waiting to say these words for months. "This isn't working anymore. You and me. This marriage. I need something different. I need someone who makes me feel alive." The words didn't make sense. I stared at him, at this man I'd been married to for 9 years, who I'd built a life with, who'd given me these 2 beautiful children currently watching us with wide, worried eyes from the back seat. "David," I said slowly, "if you're unhappy, we can talk about it. We can see a counselor. We can work on this. But not here. Not like this. Take us home and we'll figure it out." He shook his head. "I've already figured it out," he said. "Jessica and I are together. We have been for 8 months. We're in love. And we're taking the kids to a resort in Bend for the week, giving you some time here to think about things, to read the divorce papers in that suitcase and come to terms with reality." The world tilted. The ground felt unstable beneath me, like it might open up and swallow me whole. "Jessica," I repeated. "My sister, Jessica." "Your sister," he confirmed. "She understands me in ways you never have. She's fun and spontaneous, and she doesn't nag me about working late or spending money or wanting help with the kids. She makes me happy." I looked at the back seat. Emma and Noah were both crying now, sensing something terrible was happening, even if they didn't understand what. "Mommy," Emma called out, "why are you crying?" "Mommy, come back in the car. You can't do this," I said to David. "You can't just leave me here with our children. You can't take them without my permission." "Watch me," he said, "and legally I can. I'm their father. I have every right to take them on vacation. You'll get them back in a week. By then you'll have calmed down and we can discuss custody arrangements like adults." He got back in the car, actually got back in the driver's seat while I stood there in shock, unable to process what was happening. "David," I screamed, "David, stop, you can't do this." But he did. He put the car in drive and pulled away, gravel spitting from the tires. I ran after them, screaming, pleading, begging. Through the back window, I could see my children's terrified faces, Emma pressing her hands against the glass, Noah sobbing. And then they were gone. Disappeared down the road in a cloud of dust, leaving me alone in this ghost town with a suitcase I couldn't open and a reality I couldn't accept. I stood there until the dust settled and the sound of the engine faded completely. Then I sank down onto the ground, my legs unable to hold me anymore, and tried to understand what had just happened. My husband had left me, with my sister, and taken my children. Left me alone in the middle of nowhere with no phone service, no transportation, no way to contact anyone. How long did he think I'd stay here? How long until someone came looking for me? Did he care? I don't know how long I sat there in the dirt. Long enough for the sun to move across the sky, long enough for the initial shock to give way to a desperate, clawing panic. I tried my phone again and again, walking around the village looking for any spot that might have signal. Nothing. Not even one bar. The suitcase sat where David had left it, mocking me with its locked status. I tried to break it open, smashing it against rocks, prying at the zipper with sticks. Nothing worked. Whatever was inside, whatever divorce papers he wanted me to read, they stayed hidden. As the panic subsided, something else took its place. Rage. Pure, incandescent rage. How dare he? How dare they? My husband and my sister, conspiring to destroy my life, to take my children, to leave me stranded like garbage they were throwing away. They'd planned this for months, every detail calculated. The remote location, the lack of cell service, the locked suitcase. This wasn't impulsive. This was cruelty with premeditation. I explored the village as the afternoon wore on, found a well that still had water, though I didn't trust it enough to drink, found the church with the collapsed roof, filled with bird nests and the smell of decay, found houses with furniture still inside, beds made with blankets rotted through, dishes on tables like people had just gotten up and walked away mid-meal. It was like a movie set for the apocalypse. And somewhere in this nightmare landscape, I was supposed to sit quietly and accept that my husband was divorcing me for my sister. The sun was setting when I finally tried the door of the building David had walked to. The cabin he'd claimed was our vacation rental. It opened this time, the door swinging inward with a horror movie creak. Inside was worse than outside. Dust covered every surface inches thick. The furniture was broken, upholstery torn and spilling stuffing. There was a kitchenette with an ancient stove and a sink that produced only rust when I tried the tap. One bedroom with a mattress I wouldn't let my dog sleep on. This was where he expected me to stay for a week. This was what he thought I deserved. I found candles in a drawer, matches that were damp but still usable, lit them as darkness fell, casting dancing shadows on the walls, sat on the disgusting mattress because there was nowhere else to sit and tried to think. I couldn't stay here. That much was obvious. But how to leave? I was miles from the nearest town, from any place with cell service or people or help. I could walk, but which direction? The road stretched both ways into darkness. I could easily walk for hours in the wrong direction, getting more lost, more isolated, and it was already night. Walking in the dark seemed like a good way to get injured or worse. So I waited. Spent the longest night of my life in that rotten cabin, listening to the sounds of the abandoned village, creaking wood and scurrying animals and wind whistling through broken windows. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. I thought about my kids constantly. Where were they right now? Were they scared? Did they think I'd abandoned them? Did David tell them some lie about mommy needing alone time? About mommy not wanting to come on vacation? Did Jessica tuck them in, read them bedtime stories in my place, pretend to be their mother? The thought of Jessica with my children made me physically ill. I spent part of that endless night throwing up behind the cabin, my body rejecting the reality I'd been forced into. My sister, the woman I'd trusted with everything, the woman who knew all my fears and insecurities, who knew exactly how to hurt me most. She'd use that knowledge like a weapon, she and David both. Morning came eventually, gray light filtering through the filthy windows. I was exhausted but wired, running on pure adrenaline and fury. I had to get out of here, had to get to my children, had to stop whatever David and Jessica were planning. I left the suitcase, couldn't carry it anyway. Took only what I had in my pockets, my useless phone and my wallet. Started walking down the road in the direction the car had gone, because that had to lead somewhere eventually. Everything leads somewhere. The first hour was the hardest. My feet weren't prepared for this kind of walking, my city shoes already giving me blisters. The road stretched endlessly ahead, nothing but scrub brush and distant mountains, and sky so blue it hurt to look at. I thought about stopping, about conserving energy, but the thought of my children kept me moving, one foot in front of the other, again and again and again. I'd been walking for maybe 3 hours when I heard the truck. The sound of an engine carried across the empty landscape long before I saw the vehicle. I stood in the middle of the road and waved my arms like a crazy person. Please stop. Please see me. Please help. The truck slowed. An old Ford driven by a man who had to be in his 70s. He looked at me with concern and suspicion in equal measure. "You all right, miss?" he asked through the open window. I must have looked like hell, dirty, disheveled, wild-eyed. "No," I said. "I'm not all right. My husband left me in that abandoned village back there. I need to get to a phone. I need to call the police." He studied me for a long moment, probably trying to decide if I was dangerous or just unfortunate. Finally, he nodded. "Get in. I'll take you to town." The town turned out to be another 45 minutes away. 45 minutes of driving, which meant I'd walked maybe a quarter of the distance I needed to cover. I would have been walking for days, possibly died out there before finding help. Did David know that? Did he care? The old man, whose name was Frank, took me to the sheriff's office in a town called Monument. Population maybe 200. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone and a stranger showing up dirty and panicked is major news. The sheriff was a woman in her 50s named Carol Davis. She listened to my story with an expression that shifted from skepticism to concern to outrage. "Your husband abandoned you in Wilson Creek?" she said. "That place has been empty for 30 years. There's nothing out there. No water, no power, no services. What the hell was he thinking?" "That's what I'd like to know," I said. "Can I use your phone? I need to call the police in Bend, find my children." Sheriff Davis let me use her office phone. My hands shook as I dialed, trying to remember the non-emergency number for Bend Police. When I finally got through and explained the situation, the dispatcher's response was not what I wanted to hear. "Ma'am, if your husband has taken your children on vacation, that's not a crime. You're both their legal parents. Unless you have a custody order that he's violating, there's nothing we can do. But he abandoned me," I said. "Left me in the middle of nowhere with no phone, no transportation, no way to contact anyone." "That might be something for family court," the dispatcher said. "But it's not a criminal matter. You're welcome to file a report, but we can't force him to bring the children back to you." I wanted to scream, wanted to throw the phone across the room, but that wouldn't help my kids. Sheriff Davis could see my desperation. She made some calls, pulled some strings, found out that David had indeed checked into a resort in Bend 2 days ago. The Pronghorn Resort, one of the nicest in the area, had checked in with a woman and 2 children, claiming to be a family on vacation. Jessica was there with them, playing house with my husband and my kids in a luxury resort, while I'd been left to potentially die in an abandoned village. The sheriff drove me to Bend herself, 3 hours in her patrol car, listening to me alternate between crying and raging and trying to formulate a plan. "We're going to get your kids back," she kept saying. "Whatever it takes. We're going to fix this." We arrived at the resort just before dinner. I looked like hell, still in the same clothes I'd been wearing for 2 days, covered in dust and dried sweat and God knows what else from that horrible cabin. But I didn't care. I walked into that pristine lobby with its leather furniture and its artful lighting and its wealthy guests in their resort casual wear, and I demanded to know what room David Mitchell was in. The desk clerk looked alarmed. "Ma'am, I can't give out guest information." She was reaching for the phone, probably to call security. Sheriff Davis stepped forward, showed her badge. "This is official police business," she said. "What room?" The clerk's fingers flew over her keyboard. "Room 412, the family suite." Of course, the family suite. The irony would have been funny if I wasn't so far beyond humor. We took the elevator up, Sheriff Davis, myself, and a hotel security guard the desk had insisted on sending with us. The hallway was quiet, peaceful. Somewhere behind these doors, people were on vacation, relaxing, enjoying their lives. And behind one of these doors, my husband was playing family with my sister and my children. I knocked on 412, heard voices inside, movement, footsteps approaching. The door opened. David stood there in resort casual clothes, a glass of wine in his hand. His expression went from mild curiosity to shock to fear in rapid succession. "Sarah," he said, "what are you doing here? How did you get here?" "Getting my children," I said, and pushed past him into the room. The suite was beautiful. Open living area with a fireplace, kitchenette, doors leading to what must be bedrooms. And there, on the couch, was Jessica, my sister, wearing a sundress I'd never seen before, her hair perfect, makeup flawless, looking every inch like she belonged here, looking like someone's wife and someone's mother. Our eyes met across the room. I expected shame, guilt, some acknowledgement of what she'd done. Instead, she lifted her chin defiantly. "You weren't supposed to come here," she said. "You were supposed to stay put and think about things." "Think about things," I repeated. "You wanted me to stay in that abandoned village and think about my husband leaving me for my sister? Think about you stealing my family? I was saving you from an ugly scene," David said from behind me. "I thought if you had some time alone, some space to process, we could handle this like mature adults." "You left me to die," I said, turning on him. That village had nothing. No water, no food, no way to contact anyone. If that man hadn't come along, I'd still be out there. Or dead. "You don't know how to survive on your own," David said dismissively. "You've never had to. That's part of the problem. You're too dependent, too needy. Jessica gives me freedom." "Where are my children?" I demanded. "Where are Emma and Noah?" "They're asleep in the bedroom," Jessica said. "And you need to keep your voice down. You're going to wake them and scare them." "I'll scare them?" I was shaking with rage. "You've kidnapped them, stolen them from their mother, and you're worried I'll scare them?" Sheriff Davis intervened. "Mr. Mitchell," she said formally, "I need to speak with you about the incident of abandonment in Wilson Creek. Sarah, why don't you go check on your kids? I didn't need to be told twice." I went to the bedroom door Jessica had glanced at, opened it quietly. Inside, in one large bed pushed against the wall, my babies were sleeping. Emma and Noah peaceful and unaware of the war being fought over them. I sat on the edge of the bed, touched Emma's hair, Noah's cheek. They were okay. They were here. I'd found them. Emma stirred, opened her eyes. "Mommy?" she said sleepily. "Mommy, you came. We thought you didn't want to come with us. Daddy said you needed alone time." I pulled her into my arms, breathing in the familiar smell of her strawberry shampoo. "I wanted to come with you more than anything. I whispered. "I will always want to be with you. Always." "Did you have fun with Daddy and Aunt Jessica?" Emma's expression shifted, became uncertain. "It was weird," she said. "Aunt Jessica kept trying to act like a mommy. She made us call her Jess instead of Aunt Jessica. And Daddy kept kissing her like he kisses you. It made me feel yucky." My heart broke into even smaller pieces. My 8-year-old had been forced to watch her father with her aunt, had been made complicit in this betrayal. Noah woke up then, saw me, and started crying with relief. "Mommy, I thought you were lost. Daddy said you wanted to stay in that scary place, but I didn't believe him." I held both my children while they cried, while they told me confused fragments of the past 2 days. The resort had been nice, but they'd missed me. Jessica had bought them things, too many things, trying to win them over. David had been distracted, on his phone constantly. They'd asked to call me and been told the phone wasn't working. Lies. So many lies they'd been told. In the living room, I could hear Sheriff Davis talking to David in that calm, authoritative way police officers have, explaining that while he might not have committed a crime by taking his children, leaving his wife in an abandoned location with no resources was potentially criminal negligence, that she would be filing a report, that a judge would absolutely hear about this when custody arrangements were being decided. I heard David's voice rising, defensive. Heard Jessica jump in, trying to explain, trying to justify. Heard the sheriff shut them both down. I stayed with my kids until they fell back asleep, secure now that I was here. Then I went back out to face my soon-to-be ex-husband and my former sister. They were both sitting on the couch now, looking significantly less confident than when I'd arrived. Sheriff Davis stood by the door, arms crossed, expression stern. "I have a question," I said to both of them. "When exactly were you planning to bring them back to me? Because that note you left, those divorce papers I couldn't even read, they didn't mention a timeline." David had the grace to look uncomfortable. "A week," he said. "We were going to keep them for a week, give you time to calm down and accept reality. Then we'd return them and start negotiating custody." "Negotiating," I said. "You thought after this, after abandoning me and stealing our children and flaunting your affair, I'd negotiate with you? You've lost your mind." Jessica stood up, tried a different approach. "Sarah," she said, and her voice had that wheedling tone she'd used since we were kids when she wanted something. "I know this is hard, but David and I really love each other. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just couldn't help our feelings. And honestly, you haven't been happy for years. This could be good for everyone. A fresh start." The audacity of it stunned me silent for a moment. Then I laughed, actually laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor whatsoever. "You didn't mean to hurt me," I said. "You conducted an affair for 8 months. You coordinated lies and alibis. You planned this elaborate scheme to dump me in the wilderness while you played family with my children. And you didn't mean to hurt me? Jessica, you're my sister. My sister. Do you understand what you've done? Do you have any concept of the betrayal?" She had the nerve to look annoyed. "You're being dramatic," she said. "People fall in love. It happens. You don't own David just because you married him. And honestly, I can make him happier than you ever did. I'm not going to bore you with every detail of what happened next. The legal battles, the custody evaluations, the therapy sessions, the public scandal when the story got out, because of course it got out. Sheriff Davis's report became public record. The media loved it. Husband abandons wife in ghost town for affair with sister. I became that story for a while, the woman everyone pitied and speculated about. But here's what matters. I got my children. Full custody, with David relegated to supervised visitation until he could prove he wasn't a danger to their well-being. The judge was not amused by his wilderness abandonment scheme, called it reckless endangerment, called him an unfit parent. David lost his job when his firm decided his behavior reflected poorly on their family values brand, lost his fancy salary, his status, his reputation. Last I heard, he was working as a contract paralegal, barely making rent on a studio apartment. Jessica lost more. She lost me, obviously, lost every friend we'd had in common once they heard the full story, lost the respect of our extended family, most of whom sided with me. Our mother stopped speaking to her entirely, called her a disgrace to the family name. And she lost David, too, eventually. Turns out, relationships built on betrayal don't have solid foundations. They lasted maybe 18 months before imploding spectacularly. She'd wanted the excitement of stolen love, the thrill of taking something that wasn't hers. Once it was hers legitimately, once there was no conspiracy or secrecy, it lost its appeal. Or maybe she realized that a man who'd cheat with you will cheat on you. Either way, they destroyed each other. Last I heard, Jessica was living in another state, trying to reinvent herself somewhere people didn't know her story. I don't care. She's dead to me. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, went to therapy, processed the trauma of that abandonment and betrayal, started my graphic design business full-time, built it into something successful, created a life for my kids that was stable and happy and free from the toxicity David had brought into our home. We moved to a new house, just the three of us, painted the walls bright colors, filled the rooms with laughter and art and the mess of normal childhood. Emma and Noah thrived. They still see David occasionally, those supervised visits the court mandated, but they know who their real family is, who showed up for them, who fought to get them back, who will always, always choose them first. 3 years later, I'm standing in my kitchen, watching morning light stream through the windows I insisted on in this new house too. Emma is 11 now, Noah is 8. They're eating breakfast and arguing about whose turn it is to choose the music, and it's chaos, and it's mess, and it's absolutely perfect. My phone rings. Unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. Sarah? Jessica's voice, uncertain and small in a way I've never heard before. I haven't spoken to her since that night at the resort, haven't responded to her emails or her letters or her attempts to reach me through family members. What do you want? I ask, my voice flat. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, she says. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know you'll probably never forgive me. But I needed you to know that I understand now what I did, what we did. I've lost everything, and I deserve to. I wait. Don't give her anything. I've been in therapy, she continues, trying to understand why I did it, why I thought it was okay to hurt you like that, and I realize now that I was jealous of your life, your family, your stability. I wanted what you had so badly that I convinced myself I deserved it more, that I could take it and everyone would be fine. I'm not fine, she says, and her voice breaks. I haven't been fine since that night. I can't sleep. I can't look at myself in the mirror. I destroyed the most important relationship in my life for a man who didn't even really love me. And I'm so sorry. Part of me wants to forgive her. The part that remembers being kids together, sharing rooms and secrets and dreams. The part that loved her before she became the person who could do what she did. But I think about Emma and Noah, about how confused and scared they were. About being left in that abandoned village, genuinely believing I might die there, about watching my sister try to replace me as mother to my own children. No, I say simply, you don't get my forgiveness. You don't get to feel better because I absolve you. Live with what you did. Learn from it. Be better. But don't call me again. I hang up before she can respond. Look up to find Emma watching me with understanding beyond her years. Was that Aunt Jessica? She asks. I nod. She wanted to apologize. Are you going to forgive her? Emma asks. Should you? I think about it, really think about it. Then I shake my head. Some things are unforgivable, I say. And that's okay. You don't have to forgive people who hurt you just to make them feel better. You can move on and be happy without giving them absolution. Emma nods like this makes perfect sense to her. She's learned hard lessons young, my daughter. about betrayal and loyalty and the difference between them. I wish she hadn't had to, but she's stronger for them too. We all are. My husband took the kids on vacation with my sister and left me in a deserted village to potentially die. He thought that would break me. Thought I'd come back shattered and compliant, ready to sign whatever papers he wanted, ready to accept whatever scraps of life he'd leave me. Instead, I came back furious, came back fighting, came back and won. Now I have full custody of my children, a thriving business, a new house filled with light, a life built entirely on my own terms. And David has supervised visits in a court-mandated facility, a destroyed reputation, and the knowledge that his moment of cruelty cost him everything. Jessica has isolation, guilt, and the family name she can't use without shame following her. Some might say I should be more forgiving, more understanding, more willing to let go and move on. But I did move on. I moved on into a better life without them. The forgiveness is optional. The happiness is not, and I'm happy. Despite everything they did, despite the trauma they caused, despite the cruelty and the betrayal, I'm genuinely happy. My kids are happy. We're building something real and true and good. That's my revenge. That's my victory. Not that they're suffering, though they are, but that I'm thriving. That I took the worst thing that ever happened to me and used it as fuel to build something better. They tried to destroy me and failed. And now, every morning when I wake up in my house with my kids down the hall, every moment of joy and peace and contentment, it's proof. Proof that I'm stronger than their betrayal. Proof that I deserve better than what they offered. Proof that some people will try to break you, and the best revenge is refusing to break. I finish my coffee. Emma and Noah finish their breakfast. We load into the car for school, and as I drive through the morning traffic, I think about that woman I was 3 years ago, standing in an abandoned village, watching her life drive away. She thought she'd lost everything. She had no idea she was about to gain herself,